Good afternoon. Welcome. I am Marcy Fessler, President of the First Friday Club Board. In the name of our officers, board members, and committees, welcome to our April program of our 20th anniversary season. As always, I am so grateful to all who continue to support First Friday Club. Please take my gratitude home to your parish. Because of you, we are able to bring in such wonderful presenters as our presenter today ranks as one of our most wonderfuls. A couple of quick reminders. Please make sure your cell phone is silenced or turned off. So take them out, check them, make sure. Check your watch too. My watch tends to do weird buzzy sounds every so often. It's like, what is that? If you are in need of religious education certification hours, there is a form on the sign-in table. Make sure to like us on Facebook for updates and any changes. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find links to our videos from all of our previous presenters on YouTube. Please make a note in your calendars that next month we gather for the return of our dinner presentation. So May 7th, we will start at 6 p.m. with dinner and hear Dr. Matthew Schmaltz on global Catholicism and the Pope. Again, it is a dinner presentation, so do not come at 11:30. We will not be here. Okay? So spread the word. We're bringing back our dinner presentation. Help me thank Catholic Charities for sponsoring Kerry today. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Kerry will entertain questions at the end of her presentation. And now let's bow our heads, remembering our presenter, all who have gathered here in this room, and those who were unable to join us today. In a spirit of praise and thanks, we say, God, our Creator, you sustain our lives through the gift of your Spirit and the following of Jesus. Stir in us the desire to learn, to love, to serve more generously, to act on behalf of justice and truth. We ask these blessings in your holy name. Amen. I invite Rachel Herblich up to introduce Kerry.
Thank you, Marcy. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Easter. Today, we have the gift of hearing from a woman who has been a trusted voice in Catholic leadership, as well as a change agent, challenging the Church to dream bigger and rolling up her sleeves to work with others in building that vision. Kerry Alys Robinson is the President and CEO of Catholic Charities USA, becoming not only the second layperson and second woman to lead the organization, but the first wife and the first mother to do so. Before joining the Catholic Charities family, Kerry served for nearly 2 decades as the founding executive director and global ambassador for Leadership Roundtable, helping to foster transparent, accountable leadership across the Catholic Church in the United States. She also served as the Director of Development for St. Thomas More Catholic Chapel and Center at Yale University, where she led a successful $75 million fundraising campaign to endow the chapel's ministry and to construct a Catholic student center on Yale's campus. A graduate of Georgetown University, where she received a bachelor's degree in English literature and theology, and Yale University, where she received her Master of Arts degree in religion with a concentration in ethics, Kerry is the author of Imagining Abundance, Fundraising, Philanthropy, and a Spiritual Call to Service. this book considers fundraising as a transformative ministry that challenges people to realize their own gifts and how they can be used for the benefit of the church. Kerry is also a lifelong member of the Raskob Foundation for Catholic Activities, which is her family's foundation supporting the Catholic Church's good works since 1945. She's also been involved with the Opus Prize Foundation, which awards grants to ministries that alleviate human suffering. In her Good Friday 2026 reflection for the Ignatian Solidarity Network, Kerry writes, "At a time when the world is weary of despair and craving solace, the 169 Catholic Charities agencies across the country are providing comfort and relief for those in need, spreading hope through acts of service, compassion, and advocacy for a more just world. I stand in awe of my colleagues' daily commitment to those who come to them for care." Kerry's leadership manifests itself in authentic support and appreciation for those on the front lines of service, her core belief in the dignity and value of all people, and her understanding that love, mercy, and compassion open doors for those who look to the church in their time of need. With humble gratitude and great joy, I am proud to welcome Kerry Alys Robinson to the First Friday Club of Greater Youngstown. Kerry.
Thank you so much, Rachel. What a beautiful welcome. It is so wonderful to be here with the First Friday Club of Greater Youngstown on the second Thursday in April. In all seriousness, this is perfect because I rarely know what day of the week it is when I wake up. I take that as a sign of how irresistible the mission of Catholic Charities is to me, and how much I truly love my work, understood more properly as my vocation. My best friend, the hardest working Catholic priest I have ever known, used to quip that he had never worked a day in his life because he so loved his ministry. Rachel and I were just speaking about this very point at lunch. I love this work because of the mission and because of the people with whom I work and who I get to meet on occasions like this. What a blessing to be together on this wonderful day to reflect on our faith and consider how to put God's abundant love into practice. I first must express my thanks to Mary Ellen Brannigan for being such a gracious host and such a valued leader in the Catholic community here in Youngstown, and for your extraordinary corporal work of mercy last night that she and her fabulous husband Joe carried out by meeting my flight in Pittsburgh, no less. And speaking of faith-filled, merciful Catholic leaders in Youngstown, I am filled with gratitude for and admiration of Rachel Herbelich, the Diocesan Director of Catholic Charities, Diocese of Youngstown. It will come as no surprise to those of you who know her that Rachel is deeply respected throughout the Catholic Charities network. Between our love for Rachel and of course, the presence of Brian Corbin, one of her predecessors, as such a key leader at Catholic Charities USA, it would be fair to say that Catholic Charities Diocese of Youngstown is one of our most discussed and most beloved member agencies at our office in Alexandria, Virginia. A little more than 2 years ago, my husband and I woke to the news that our friend of nearly 15 years had died. Almost certainly, he had been murdered. You may have heard of our friend. He has been in the news quite a bit since his death. His name is Alexei Navalny, and he was Russian President Putin's opposition leader and an anti-corruption advocate. We first met Alexei Navalny when he came to Yale University for the Yale World Fellows Program, an international leadership residency program of which my husband, Michael Capello, served as director. Alexei brought his wife, Yulia, and their young children, Dasha and Zahar, with him to campus for the semester. It was our habit, and indeed privilege, to host Yale World Fellows and their families at our home on Sunday afternoons for a simple home-cooked meal. Our children, who were young for the 8 years my husband served as director of the program, were deeply influenced by our international friends from 78 countries. We took a particular liking to Alexei and Yulia and their children, and we stayed in touch and met with them during their occasional return trips to the US. When news of Alexei's death was announced, we heard from many who knew of our friendship with him. It was striking how many people, despite never having met Alexei, felt a genuine loss themselves, confessed to deep emotion at the injustice of his death, and felt that this was a great loss not only for his family, but in a certain cosmic sense for the world. What Alexei's life and death and the response to his life and death revealed to me is our deep yearning for moral heroism. We are hungry for moral heroes and the compelling values that inform and sustain such heroism. Alexei's courage was evident from our very first days of meeting him. To be repeatedly falsely charged and imprisoned by Putin, released only to be brazenly poisoned by Putin, saved by courageous pilots and doctors, dramatically airlifted out of Russia to Germany, and after months of medical rehabilitation, returned to Russia knowing he would be arrested and likely worse, is extraordinary. Those who loved him begged him not to return to Russia for his own safety. That he did so because of a radical commitment to the cause for which he had devoted his life, shining a spotlight on the corruption of his country and the brutality of its president, and advocating for justice, truth, and democracy, is a sign of Alexei's integrity. He gave his life for others, for truth, democracy, an end to the war in Ukraine, an end to corruption in his country. And after his death, Alexei's example continued to inspire acts of service and moral courage all over the world, but especially in his home country. Thousands of people attended his funeral in person, even though they knew they might be targeted by the government and arrested as a result. Equally courageous and committed is his wife, Yulia, who has taken up his mantle of leadership. It's a powerful and inspiring reminder. Courage begets courage. Selflessness inspires selflessness. The starting point for living a life of service is to pay attention to the role models in our midst. Look for moral heroism and concomitant tenacious dedication to the values which inform such heroism. What resonates with you? What moves your heart? Who restores your faith in humankind? Who makes you want to be a better person? Who ennobles you? These examples do not have to be as stark or dramatic as that of Alexei Navalny. Living a life of service does not and should not require you to willingly give up your own life. But I assure you that if you look with intention, you will easily identify examples in your own life. Identifying and emulating the people who serve as your own moral heroes will help clarify your purpose and direction in life. That practice has radically influenced the trajectory of my own. For as long as I have been aware, I have loved and held the potential of the Catholic Church in the highest esteem. Its explicitly religious mission has formed the person I am. That it is the largest humanitarian network in the world renders me forever committed to its health and vitality. I was exposed to the church at a very young age through the Raskop Foundation for Catholic Activities. 5 generations of our family have served the church through the instrument of this foundation. Nearly 80 years ago, our great-grandparents, Helena and John Raskob, established the Philanthropic Foundation with two intentions. They wanted all the foundation's resources to be used exclusively to support the Catholic Church's religious and humanitarian work throughout the world, and they wanted their children and descendants to be stewards of the foundation's resources as volunteers. Participating in the work of the foundation has radically enlarged our perspective of the church and introduced us, even as teenagers, to the astoundingly diverse forms of ministry under its auspices. As a child, I was drawn to women and men, ordained, religious, and lay, whose faith mattered deeply to them and who stood at the vanguard of human suffering all around the world and responded by alleviating that suffering, by providing food, safe shelter, education, and health care, by advocating for those in distress, by championing justice, by sowing the seeds of peace. I was mesmerized by people who dedicated their lives to others through service. I observed that while these childhood role models often bore witness to the worst of what humankind does to one another and to our planet, there was a palpable sense of joy about them. Joy. Their lives were imbued with purpose and meaning. I admired their faith, their interior freedom, and their joy. I aspired to be like them, but suspected I could never be so holy, so selfless, so other-centered. From a young age, I basically begged God to let me do something with my life that would positively contribute to the lives of my moral heroes. As I grew into an adult, I thought I would make my life's work in the field of faith-based philanthropy, helping Catholic funders and foundations make sound philanthropic investments in people and social enterprises. It is both funny and true that if you want to make God laugh, tell God your plans. Instead of working in the sector that gave money away, I was asked to be responsible for raising it by serving as the Director of Development at St. Thomas More Catholic Chapel and Center at Yale University. This was a job I neither wanted nor was qualified for in any way. Father Bob Boulogne, the Catholic chaplain at Yale, who would become my closest friend and prime collaborator, called me to explain the $5 million capital campaign, assured me it would be a piece of cake, a walk in the park, and that there would be absolutely no stress or anxiety involved. And then he asked me to be the person to lead this fundraising effort, adding, "Kerry, your name came to me in prayer." Still to this day, the best development pickup line I have ever heard. Let me be very clear, I did not want this job. I dreaded the very idea of this responsibility. I scrambled to think how I could decline politely. I suddenly remembered I was pregnant with my second child. I told him the happy news. There was silence on the phone. And then with genuine enthusiasm, he congratulated me, told me how happy he was for me, and said, "You can work from home." And then he said, "I know I am springing this on you. Please just pray about this for 5 days. Whatever your answer is in prayer, of course I will accept that and honor it." Brilliant, I thought. After 5 days of praying, my no will be so eloquent and convincing. Well, anyone who has ever taken prayer seriously knows it is the one praying who is often changed. To my astonishment, even to this day, I called him and accepted. We served together for almost a decade, modeling lay clergy collaboration, holding up a vision of what a Catholic intellectual and spiritual center of consequence could look like at a world-class university. We raised 15 times the original goal, a staggering $75 million, introduced 14 new programmatic initiatives, built a Caesar Pelli-designed Catholic student center on Yale's campus, added a third Sunday liturgy to accommodate the growing number of students and faculty participating, and raised the bar of Catholic campus ministry across the country. This is what we learned. Generosity is humankind's birthright. We are all called to be generous and to be catalysts to inspire generosity in others. A common misconception is that generosity is only for the very wealthy. Believing that lets the rest of us off the hook and denies ourselves a full, rewarding life. Central to Christianity is the conviction that one finds life first by giving it away. This point is best illustrated by a story about another moral hero, Mother Teresa. The setting is a food dispensing center in rural India in the midst of severe poverty and hunger. Once a week, one member of every family in the impoverished village would line up with a single bucket, patiently waiting their turn to have the religious sisters fill their bucket with dry grains of rice. A novice was shadowing Mother Teresa on this day as she methodically greeted each person and filled each bucket. Before long, an elderly woman reached the front of the line and, to the novice's surprise, had in her possession 2 buckets. Mother Teresa greeted her by name and proceeded to fill 1 bucket. After thanking Mother Teresa, the woman turned to leave, stopping a short distance later to empty half of her full bucket into the second empty bucket. The novice, miserable to be witness to the extent of the pervasive hunger and deprivation, turned to Mother Teresa and asked, "Why did we not fill up both buckets for that poor elderly woman?" Mother Teresa replied, "There is only enough rice for each family to receive 1 bucket. She has her neighbor's bucket and her own. Her neighbors are ill, and no one from the family is able to come to collect the rice. She's emptying half of her family's share into her neighbor's bucket to bring to them because she cannot carry more." Overwhelmed with sorrow, the novice said, "Surely we should fill both buckets and take the second bucket to the sick family for her." Mother Teresa stopped what she was doing and admonished the novice. "These are among the poorest and most destitute people you will ever meet. Never take away the right of another person to be generous. Never take away the right of another person to be generous." We are all called to be generous. Sure, we can and should be generous with our financial resources, but we can also be generous with our time, with our attention. We can volunteer. We can share what we have and what is precious to us. We can donate. We can be generous by extending the benefit of the doubt, by presuming goodness in one another. We can be generous listeners. We can be generous by extending forgiveness. Think about one moral hero in your life. Inevitably, you will find a reservoir of generosity there too. For several years, I had the privilege of serving as the executive director of the foundation responsible for the Opus Prize, which is an annual $1 million international humanitarian award that honors people of any faith whose lives are dedicated to the alleviation of human suffering. The prize recognizes unsung heroes who are addressing the world's most persistent social problems. All of the people honored through this prize are inspiring, but it was the laureate from 2023, Bishop Peride Taban, whose story affected us in a particularly deep and lasting way. Bishop Taban was the founder of the Holy Trinity Peace Village in South Sudan. Throughout the brutal civil war in his country, Bishop Taban refused to leave. As a prominent faith leader, he was given every opportunity of safe passage out of the country. but he would not leave while his people were suffering and in danger. He stayed to be close to the people of Sudan. As waves of violence washed across the country, he was in grave danger. Bishop Taban was captured, imprisoned, and tortured. For 100 days, he was detained and subjected to brutality. And when he was finally released, the first thing he did was to return to the place of his captivity to bring food to his captors. Who among us cannot see radical sanctity in that action, that instinct? In the face of so much violence and poverty, despair and isolation, his faith compelled him to effect peace, to provide nourishment and hope, and to set the conditions where all could flourish by creating the Peace Village. Bishop Taban passed away before being named the Opus Prize laureate. He actually died on All Saints' Day. Despite his death, his example, like that of Alexei Navalny and Mother Teresa, continues to inspire a world in need of moral courage, of goodness, of vision, of hope. People who live lives of service have a contagious, irresistible quality to them, and it is precisely that contagiousness that drew me to my current work. For it is the honor of my lifetime to be part of the Catholic Charities Network, to work with such accomplished and dedicated colleagues, to witness moral heroism every single day in every single agency across thousands of our neighborhoods in the United States. What's more, it feels as though everything in my life has led me to this moment of service. I've found when I speak to groups or in individual conversations that some people are unsure about what exactly Catholic Charities does. And that is understandable. In fact, there's a very good reason why people have trouble precisely pointing to what we do. The life-changing ministries of Catholic Charities are varied and vast. Every day, in every corner of the United States, Catholic Charities agencies provide comfort, hope, and relief to people in need, regardless of their faith or background. A common misconception is that Catholic Charities exist to serve Catholics in need. In fact, we serve all people of all religions and all backgrounds. As the famous saying goes, we don't serve people in need because they are Catholic. We serve people in need because we are Catholic. Our clients face practically any challenge you can imagine. A family whose home was demolished in an instant by a tornado or a fire. An expectant mother who is unsure of how to care for a newborn baby. A veteran looking to develop new skills and launch a new career. A single father struggling to afford groceries for his children. A refugee charting a new life in an unfamiliar country. A senior barely able to afford her medication and living in a dilapidated apartment. A person in recovery struggling with depression. A family materially poor living out of their car. This could be any one of us, any of our family members, any one of our neighbors. One of my all-time favorite observations by Father Greg Boyle is, this is what we seek, a compassion that can stand in awe at what the poor have to carry, rather than stand in judgment at how they carry it. The people we serve all have one thing in common. They need help, they need mercy, they need compassion, and they know that they can find it at Catholic Charities. The scale of our network's work is difficult to comprehend, but let me share a few numbers to put it into perspective. As Rachel said, there are 169 Catholic Charities agencies spread across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and 5 U.S. territories. Last year alone, Catholic Charities staff and volunteers across the country provided care to more than 16 million people in need. They served 30 million meals to those who were food insecure and hungry. More than 64,000 clients received critical career training and were placed into new jobs. Our agencies provided 3.2 million nights of emergency shelter for those experiencing homelessness. And they responded to a staggering 42 disasters in 19 states, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, wildfires, and more, helping reeling communities and families recover and rebuild. All of this was just in 1 year, and we have been at this work in the United States of America for more than 115 years. You, of course, have a wonderful living, breathing example of this work right here in your backyard in the form of the life-giving ministries of Catholic Charities, Diocese of Youngstown. With Rachel's guidance, the Catholic Charities agencies in this diocese serve thousands of individuals each year, transforming lives and changing the trajectories of families. While each Catholic Charities agency across the United States is independent and tailors its services to the unique needs of its community, we share the same basic mission and at times respond as a network to massive challenges affecting impoverished families around the country. An example occurred this fall when SNAP benefits lapsed for 42 million Americans as a result of the prolonged shutdown of the federal government. This meant that the most vulnerable among us, families struggling to make ends meet, suddenly faced even greater uncertainty about how they'd find and afford food for their families. It also meant the Catholic Charities food pantries and soup kitchens, already stretched thin, would experience a tremendous surge in demand for their services. Catholic Charities USA responded immediately, much as we do in the wake of a large-scale natural disaster. We launched an emergency nationwide appeal to support families and individuals who had been forced deeper into food insecurity. Donations poured in from across the country. We used every single dollar raised to purchase food from our food distribution partners in bulk and at a generous discount, and shipped more than 2.5 million pounds of fresh fruit and vegetables, shelf-stable milk, and other food to 129 Catholic Charities agencies in 45 states to distribute to hungry, worried families. Every agency that requested emergency food received it. This inspiring response revealed the same truth Mother Teresa shared with her novice. When people know that their neighbors are in distress, they instinctively want to help. While the upheaval and anxiety brought on by the SNAP lapse was truly terrible, a positive unintended consequence was increased awareness about the unacceptable level of hunger in the richest country in the world. That awareness led to action, and that action was organized and purposeful. In the face of human anguish and injustice, it is tempting to protect our hearts and look away, or to believe that our individual acts of mercy or service cannot possibly make a difference. But remember, generosity inspires generosity. Service to others is habit forming. It calls forth in us a desire to belong, to be part of what is right and just. As my friend Mac McCarter likes to say, caring alone won't heal the world, but caring together will. This is why I love the Catholic Charities Network, described by a colleague as organized love. Whether it's the response to the SNAP lapse or the life-giving services of Catholic Charities, Diocese of Youngstown, our work, day after day, fills me with a deep reservoir of hope. And this year, we're seeking to share and spread that hope all over the country through a new and exciting initiative. For 2 days last July, we hosted 42 staff and volunteers from various Catholic Charities agencies at our offices in Alexandria, Virginia. These 42 people traveled from all around the country to be professionally recorded, telling one story of an interaction with a client that particularly touched their heart. These video testaments are the centerpiece of the People of Hope Museum, a traveling museum that last month began traveling the country and will continue for the next 3 years, sharing powerful stories of neighbors helping neighbors through the work of Catholic Charities. Our hope is that this museum will inspire people of goodwill around the country to find ways to encounter, accompany, and serve their neighbors in need. We had nearly 300 members of the network apply to be featured in the museum. All of their stories were touching and inspiring. It was incredibly difficult for our team to choose only 42. I won't fully do it justice, but I'd like to briefly describe one of those stories for you. Mary is a longtime employee of Catholic Charities Diocese of Trenton in New Jersey. A number of years ago, she was speaking to a crowd of people at a mall during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, when a man in his 20s came up with his mother and asked Mary if she remembered him. She apologized and said that she didn't. The man then told Mary that he had been 8 years old when he and his mother came into Catholic Charities' safe house. Mary had been their case manager. The man explained that Catholic Charities was the first place he ever felt safe and free. He told Mary that he was now a father and a high school teacher and coach. He then told her, "I'm the first man in 5 generations of my family who is not violent. My son will grow up to be a good man." Suddenly, Mary looked into his eyes and recognized him. The 8-year-old boy who had once needed shelter and support was standing before her whole and strong. She was deeply moved. That moment made Mary truly appreciate the impact of her work through Catholic Charities. One small act of kindness can have ripple effects that break cycles and change family trajectories, that allow hope to blossom and spread throughout communities and our nation. That is the goal of the People of Hope Museum. In addition to these powerful 42 stories, the museum includes a poverty simulator, an audio library with excerpts from books on service, community building, and generosity, an interactive wall of national and state-level data on poverty, and a recording studio in which visitors can share their own stories of hope. I am thrilled that the museum will be here in Youngstown this summer on July 20th and July 21st. I strongly encourage you to visit it. Having toured the museum myself, of course, and talked to a number of visitors about their experiences, I am confident you'll be moved and inspired. The People of Hope Museum and the powerful stories within it will restore your faith in humankind. These storytellers, and indeed all who work and volunteer at Catholic Charities, are reasons for our hope. They represent the Catholic Church at its very best. That is a powerful and important claim. To be clear, a life of service can be led by anyone, and anyone can devote their life to making this a better, more just, and merciful world. You don't need faith for this. I am struck, however, by the presence and persistence of faith in the examples of the change agents and moral heroes I have encountered over the course of my life. Before dismissing faith as irrelevant to a meaningful life of service, consider that faith offers 2 important things: a community to sustain, inspire, encourage, console, forgive, and hold us accountable, and access to transcendence. Working to make the world better, living a life of service, even in a faith-based context, can be demanding and difficult. Working to reform the church, to call it to greater levels of holiness and effectiveness, can also be daunting. For 20 years, in the wake of the revelations about the church's abuse crisis, I worked with Catholic leaders across the country through Leadership Roundtable to bring greater accountability, transparency, justice for victim survivors, and contemporary best managerial practices to the church. The church is our faith family. When your family is in crisis, you do everything possible to effect healing and reconciliation. To do nothing would have been to be complicit. For all of my deep love and dedication to the church, at times it has utterly broken my heart. Perhaps there have been times when it has broken your heart too, manifested ignoble qualities, clericalism, sexism, mediocrity, exclusion. In times of desolation like this, the best advice I have ever been given came from a beloved professor and spiritual director and sister of mercy. She said, "Remember what it is you most love about the Catholic Church and membership in it. Name what you love. Claim what you love. It will provide ballast to allow you to navigate with fidelity and focus when you are disappointed and discouraged." I have taken this advice to heart and highly recommend the discipline. My list is long and wide. I love Catholic social teaching, our church's rich intellectual tradition, sacramental life and imagination, mercy, the Eucharist, the primacy of conscience, prayer and transcendence, forgiveness, the preferential option for the poor and most vulnerable, the injunction every day to be Christ-like. I love our church's emphasis on forming young people and education. I love that wherever there is human suffering in this world, the church is at the vanguard of providing relief, promoting justice, and advocating for peace. I love our church's appreciation of beauty and aesthetics, the art and architecture, music and literature our faith has inspired. I love that Catholic Charities represents the teachings of the gospel made manifest, concretely in real life, and that this work makes a tangible difference in the lives of the most vulnerable all around the country. And in my grief over losing my dear friend, Father Bob Beloin, to brain cancer, I am grateful more than I can say for our church's articulation of the community of saints, the conviction of eternal life, and the fact that love doesn't end with death. I'm reminded of Father Gino Walsh's famous injunction. Followers of Jesus are promised two things. Your life will have meaning, and you will live forever. If you get a better offer, take it. If and when you have moments of doubt or disappointment in your church, I hope that you will find and focus on your own sources of inspiration and encouragement, your own examples of moral heroism. It is never too late to become the person you are meant to be, and it is never too late to be generous, to serve, to cultivate a disposition of other-centeredness, and to work for the common good. Some people have lived their entire lives in service to others. Some immerse themselves conspicuously in service when they retire. The Ignatian Volunteer Corps is an example of a ministry that prepares and places retirees in service. Anyone at any age who genuinely gives of themselves to help others, especially those who are suffering, who are in need of mercy, always say the same thing to me. I received far more than I could give. I'll end with one more story that demonstrates how central a call to service is to our wiring as human beings. One evening, several years ago, neighbors, relatives, and friends somewhat spontaneously gathered on our porch in New Haven, Connecticut. Lively conversation commenced, and then the subject turned rather suddenly to the best way to die. The question was specific in its intensity. How would you like to experience your own death? Over bottles of wine and candlelight, we took turns articulating the pros and cons of the myriad ways any one of us might experience our own death. It was not entirely morbid. One friend was certain that dying in her sleep peacefully at the end of a long life would be the most desirable. Another suggested that she would like to die suddenly and quickly, without warning, ideally after a spectacularly joyful celebration with everyone she knew and loved. Okay, that was me. Another suggested that he would prefer to have as much time as possible with the knowledge of a terminal illness in order to make amends, to thank his friends and family, and to be intentional about giving away everything he possessed. And so the conversation ensued until the eldest at the table, my father, turned to the youngest at the table, our then 13-year-old daughter. Sophie, you have been very quiet and very attentive, but you have not yet volunteered an answer. Do you have an opinion on the way you would most like to die? Everything became still and silent. I held my breath. Too late, I wondered if she was too young for such a deep, existential, distressing discourse. Perhaps she had never seriously considered the matter. Now, at the center of everyone's attention, aware that a response was being asked of her, she replied very simply, "Yes, I hope I die saving someone else's life." That still gets me. None of these answers were bad answers, but only one was truly Christ-like, the teenagers. Being her mother, I will of course tell you that Sophie is an extraordinary young woman. But as a student of the human condition, I'll also tell you that her instinct is not unique. We are all naturally predisposed to be people of compassion, of empathy, of generosity, to be people of hope. And I leave you with the wish that we can all emulate our moral heroes and heroines, that we will find inspiration in people like Alexei, Bishop Taban, Mother Teresa, and Mary from Trenton. Identify the causes you care most about and try to make a difference. Find your own moral heroes and heroines and strive to emulate them. Be a person of hope, a beneficial presence in the world. When you cultivate the discipline of being other-centered, you begin to take genuine delight in the good fortune of others. And when you take genuine delight in the good fortune of others, you will never be without a reason to celebrate. When someone else's happiness is your happiness, that is love. I can promise you this, the more you focus on serving others, on finding ways to be generous, the more fulfilling and joyful your life will be. The fact that you came here on the second Thursday of the month to listen to a talk about living a life of service already gives me great hope that you are succeeding in this endeavor and will continue to do so. So thank you all for being a reason for my hope. It has been an honor and truly my pleasure to be with you today. Thanks. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. I know that we have a few minutes before the top of the hour, and I am happy to take questions or rebuttals or comments.
Hold your hand up, and I'll bring the microphone to you.
That was beautiful, and what your daughter said is just really touched me. My question is, I am here because of Catholic Charities adoption, and I wondered, does Catholic Charities continue to do that service for people?
It's so interesting that you say this, because when I travel the country, people always stop me and tell me how they are connected to Catholic Charities, and the two top answers are that they or somebody in their family was adopted through Catholic Charities, and the second is that they were part of a family that was vetted and allowed entrance into the country and resettled as a refugee family here by Catholic Charities. But it's so beautiful. We do a lot for mothers and children, pregnant women. There's fewer and fewer adoptions now. Like the society has changed, so there is less of a demand for that. But we do have that as part of our constellation of services, and a lot with foster care as well. Parenting classes, support for single moms. Yeah, it runs the gamut.
Thank you.
I discovered my father is one of 14. Oh, thank you. See that act of generosity and kindness? My dad is one of 14, 7 of whom were adopted, and 3 with special needs, and 5 of them were adopted through Catholic Charities, and I didn't even know that they were adopted through Catholic Charities until I came to this job. So I give thanks every day for my aunts and uncles.
Kerry,
Yes.
can I just, locally, I just wanted to answer Laura's question, because Catholic Charities in the Diocese of Youngstown has a very rich history of adoption, as demonstrated, and we see people all the time who were adopted. We do not actually provide adoptions any longer. We are doing many of the programs that are addressing women with children, families with children, working through people when they need help. But the number of actual adoptions had become so few that we did relinquish our license, although we continue to maintain all of the records of adoption as required. But we definitely provide that information, and if somebody is looking for adoption or is wanting information, we'll still work with them on that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to inject that locally for them.
Beautiful, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you so much for welcoming me to your beautiful, beautiful community. I am here for the rest of the day and some of tomorrow, and I look forward to everything that Rachel's going to show me, and you have just been exceptionally hospitable and welcoming. Thanks so much for who you are and what you do.
Kerry, thank you so much for your story, for enlightening us, for giving us some more enrichment on the history and current work of Catholic Charities. I personally am grateful that I work and live in a diocese that has leadership that we have for Catholic Charities. And I'm just grateful for the work that Catholic Charities does. So thank you so much. Remember to mark your calendars for May 7th, the evening presentation. So 6 o'clock, May 7th, we'll be here, but we won't be here in the morning. I can't keep stressing that enough. And we will have, again, Dr. Matthew Schmaltz, Global Catholicism and the Pope. We're pretty excited about this. So thank you again, Kerry. Thank you, Rachel, for your work in Catholic Charities. Nancy, where'd you go? Nancy? And Rick? And the staff. and staff. And I am going to point something out. I have to. We have an international traveler with us today. Father Conaboy is gracing us with his presence from Rome. I had to. So thank you all so much for being here. Kerry, I think we're going to work on getting you back on our schedule in a couple of years because this is pretty cool. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful Easter season, and I'll see you next month, May 7th in the evening. Thank you all.